Well, I just want to introduce and welcome our guest, Te Kingi, to our podcast, Resilience Matters, where we explore themes around resilience and why it matters. And we just want to welcome you here today. A very distinguished guest with a massive heart and massive way of reaching out to our communities in terms of research and seeing what is really, really effective in terms of how we can assist our whānau tangata whaiora in their mental well-being. And so thank you for joining us today. So I guess I'll just start off with, ko waikui.
Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to have a good discussion. Ngāti awa, Ngāti pūkeko, ngaitai, and from the same place as you, a little place called Poroporo.
Yes.
Just out of Whakatane. Living in the house, I was raised by my grandparents, Kui and Crow, and living in the house that I was brought up in. Very fortunate to be back home.
Beautiful. Yep. Nice. So tell us a little bit about growing up in Poroporo.
Yeah, it was, growing up for me, it was a little while ago now. One of the more unusual things and one of the great things about Poroporo was you're more or less related to everyone in that small community. If they weren't your first cousins, they certainly were your second cousins or your mother's first cousins. And especially on my grandmother's side of the family, her sisters and brothers and their children tended to live in the community. So it was unusual to the extent, I guess, for me growing up. You're literally related to everyone. Went to Poroporo Primary School. Started there when I was 3.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think probably because my uncle, who's married, so Joe Mason was the principal at that time.
Yes.
And Joe's my uncle, married to my mother's sister,
Yes.
eldest sister.
Yes.
I think it was really just... it was free babysitting for a while. So my kuia usually would drop me off at the primary school, and my Uncle Joe was there and Auntie Bunty was there, and they looked after me and put me in the class. And still remained friends with a lot of the kids that were there at the time. Again, related to, I think half the school were ranapias at that
yes.
point.
Yeah.
So all my cousins are your cousins as well.
Yep.
And Meritos,
Yes.
and Mawis, and Ngongos,
Yep.
all the whānau from Poroporo. So growing up in Poroporo, loved it. And part of the reason why it's so great living back at home now after being away for a while.
Yep.
Is that whānau's still there.
Yep. Oh, beautiful. Yes, it is a beautiful spot, Poroporo. Great rugby team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and so from there, growing up in Poroporo, moved to a high school, quite a distinguished high school.
Yeah, not initially. Yeah. I was sorry.
Just now? No.
Yeah. I was at went to Poroporo Primary, then to Whakatane Intermediate,
yes.
and then Whakatane High School for a period of time. Where I struggled. I think the school struggled with me. And later on, my sort of when I was at secondary school, made the decision. I think I made the decision, or was made for me, either by my grandparents or Whakatane High School, that that educational environment didn't work well for me.
Yep.
All my fault. I didn't think I was focused enough. So the decision was made to send me away to boarding school, the school that my grandfather attended in the 1930s,
Wow.
which was Tipene, which, as you mentioned, has just reopened after 25 years.
Yep.
So I got sent away to boarding school up in Bombay, to that school, and that probably had a profound impact on me in lots of ways, largely positive. It allowed me to really focus on my intellectual and academic potential, mainly because I couldn't play sport. They had 200 kids there at that time. 199 of them were, athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was probably the only one that wasn't. But the advantage of that type of situation was that it really allowed me to sort of focus on my schooling and my academics. Made some great friends, had some fantastic teachers. Remain friends with all of them to this day. It was a tiny school, still is. Well, at the moment there's only 40 boys there, but when I was there was 200, knew everyone. Great friends, great teachers. It really set me along a different path. And the same's true for probably the boys that I was at school with as well. Maybe about 8 in our 7th form. Of that 8, I think all of them, which was unusual for back then, and being Māori boys, all 8 went to university.
Wow.
Couple of CEOs of sort of fairly large companies. One's a judge.
Wow.
I think I was probably the only disappointment from that year group. But yeah, can't say enough about the school. But my memories of the school were positive. But I guess with the boys that are at the school there now, it's that they're certainly far better equipped than we ever were. The new cohort of boys at Tipene. They're a lot better behaved. So got sent away to boarding school. Yeah.
And then you completed high school from there, and then did you move into university straight after, or sort of knew what you wanted to do? And like, how did you end up like wanting to move down the route that you've gone?
Yeah. I always tell people, and it might be an important message too, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah.
And there never was, nor has there ever been sort of a broad plan for me.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's worked out okay, but there's been a number of sort of, what's the right word? Serendipitous events that have occurred in my life, which I'm grateful for. One of those sort of bizarre situations was, how I got to university was the final year at school. Me and my best friend were walking past the principal's office, and there was a boy standing outside, and we were going to class, and my mate who was walking with me said to this guy his name's Bernard Tapa, just sort of told him, you better get to class, and he said, oh no, I'm signing up for university. And we were just cruising past, and he said, oh, you should come for a listen and sign up. I want to go to university. And he said, well, if you come and listen, you don't have to go to the next class.
Yeah.
So we spun around. And sat in on this presentation. Signed some forms. We had no idea what we'd sign not to. And we often reflect on it. It ended up going to university simply due to the fact that we'd happened to be walking past someone at this particular point in time, and my mate, thought he'd better remind this other person, Bernard, that he'd better get to class. And but Bernard's now, I think he's a chief advisor at Te He was a chief advisor at the Ministry of Health, so he's done really well for himself. And my best mate, Nathan York, is the chief executive of a large property company in Poroporo.
Yep.
But we often talk about the sometimes little things happen in your life which put you on one path or another.
Yep.
And so getting back to your question, that there was no master plan.
Yeah.
Just happened to be walking past. These things have happened throughout my life. Walking past a certain place at a certain time, ended up at university. Was at my mother's during the holidays after I'd finished school, and she said, "What are you doing next year? You can't have your 21st at school." I would have gone back to school. Wasn't that old, but
Yeah.
and then a note. This is back in the day. We had these things called letters.
Yes.
Yeah, arrives in the post, and she goes, "What are you doing next year?" And she goes, I said, "Oh, I'm going to university." She said, "Oh, what are you studying?" I went, and I had to read it, didn't know what it signed up to, but yeah, cohort of us from Tipene that went to university that year.
And what was it that you studied? Was it psychology, or was it because...
All sorts. Yeah. History, economics.
Oh, wow.
But accounting. Marketing. Now, I'm only mentioning the papers that I took. I won't tell you the ones I passed.
Yeah.
That's probably a good message as well.
Yeah.
I certainly had certainly had a few failures in terms of the papers that I took and having to restructure my degree because just didn't get through. Of course, I told my grandparents that they kept asking me, when are you finishing school? That's what they called university. I said, "Oh, I might keep going." What they didn't know, I had to keep going because, you don't pass.
I had one of those experiences too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that they align, some of those ones align with your passions? Like, the ones that maybe didn't go so well, maybe was something that you weren't so passionate about? Was that kind of your experience?
For me, I think for me it just really highlighted the, sometimes you just got to work, and sometimes things are hard,
Yep.
and oftentimes those things that matter the most are the most difficult. Think things I enjoyed, oftentimes, at least at university, weren't things that you'd get a qualification for. So it taught us a lot, all of us as a group, about the fact that you got to apply yourself. You don't necessarily need to be the brightest. It helps if you are. A couple of my mates are really bright. I don't think they needed to put in as much effort and energy as myself. But I just kept plodding along, and sometimes you'd pass, sometimes you'd fail. But it taught you how to think, and it likewise taught you about getting back to about resilience and picking yourself up, and
Getting into it,
but challenging when you sort of get the results back. And
it's always a bit of a kick in the guts, It doesn't matter what level you're at, if you're in high school, or if you're in uni, or even way down the line. Those types of things, it's never good to see that. But it can be good if we learn from it, if we if we go from there and keep building from there,
Yeah, still don't know if I've learned everything that I should, but I certainly didn't breeze through.
Yeah.
Struggled.
And so what brought you to, I guess, working in mental health, research in mental health, student of Māori health as well, a professor of psychometrics, now director at Awanuiarangi, lead for research and innovation, So there's a lot of, things that have happened since then, and, I guess to the path that you're leading now, and leading in a lot of these forums. What sort of brought you to, was it the same thing, like, sort of just opportunities, or was there like you saw a need, or you saw your whānau, or was there something like that happened that sort of spurred you on to leading the path that you're on?
Yeah, you probably realise there's a theme to my life, Luke. never any any sort of plan.
Yeah.
But I'd often reach some sort of crossroads, not major ones. It's just what am I going to do, and somehow I got pointed in one direction rather than another. So initially, never had any particular interest in health or mental health. Finished university, did my masters at Waikato, there at Waikato University. Did a few jobs in the post-university. Actually, when I was I used to work in the holidays at the freezing works, and that was really cool. Still friends with a lot of the guys there that I was in the freezing works with, some good friends. But sort of struggled to. I thought I might have been overqualified back then. Struggled to find a job post-university, other than sort of the usual holiday jobs. And then a mate of mine was working at Massey University, and he said apply for this role as a research assistant. So I applied for it, went there for the interview, and didn't get the job.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I was just about to, just thank them for being shortlisted. And then the guy leading the interview panel was Mason Jury. And he said, "Oh, you didn't get the job?" And I said, "Oh, okay, thank you." And he said, "Oh, but I've got a little project." He goes, "I might need a hand with you. You got a bit of time on your hand?" I said, "Yeah, I suppose so." And that little project lasted about 20 years.
Wow.
Different projects over the years, but and it was in mental health.
Yep.
And naively, one time he asked me if I should, do my PhD in mental health or psychometrics, and I said, I don't really know much about that area. And I said, and I'll need a supervisor. And he said to me, he said, well, I've got a bit of free time. I could supervise. So I thought about it, and I said, well, do you know anything about mental health? And he sort of paused and said, a little bit. And that kind of really was the catalyst, I guess, for me pursuing a career in mental health and psychometrics, and dabbling a bit in a whole range of different related areas in epidemiology and that.
Yep.
Partly because I began to develop an interest in it, but primarily, this might be another something of interest, primarily because of the mentoring from Mason. Incredible intellect, but fabulous individual. When I was young, I thought, It's a really nice. This man's really lovely. He's bright, very kind,
Yep.
and really supportive. I thought, Jeff, if I hang around him long enough, some of that might rub off on me.
Yep.
And
It sure has. Yep.
But and that taught me a lot. Just sort of hanging. I used to drive him a lot, all over the place. But that taught me a lot around just watching how he engaged with people and treated people. Always with kindness and respect and humility. I don't think I always do that. I get too frustrated with people.
Yeah.
But really cool mentoring in terms of how to behave and act and how do you treat others.
Yep.
Over and above that. And I don't know if I spent a lot of time, still spend a bit of time with him, but the level and depth of his insight on cultural, clinical, and technical things was just stunning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I think when I was at uni, I actually grew up in Australia, so I didn't know anything about, Mason jury and, come over, some of those models around whare tapawhā and all of those types of things. Learning them, I was like, man, this is pretty awesome, and then, it's pretty amazing, Oh, do you know a bit about mental health? When we're like, that's like now in schools everywhere. And our basic understanding about Māori, haupōra comes from that model, I believe, like especially like widespread knowledge too. And so it's pretty special. And I think that's the importance of like mentors, and it doesn't matter whose life, right? This can be anyone's life. Having those people who you can look up to is super important.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're ever in an opportunity, if you're ever given the opportunity to mentor, to support someone, like your work, it's incredibly rewarding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. And so, done a lot of mahi around and research around mental health, well-being, Māori health. What are some, interesting things that maybe whānau don't know about in terms of maybe, stats or some of your findings through your research that might be helpful for whānau to know?
Yeah.
Or even encouraging could be too.
Yeah, try and frame it positively. Trying to think how to... There's so much potentially that might be of interest.
Yeah.
But I guess in terms of framing my thoughts, or organising my thoughts, especially in terms of Māori mental health, and what's come through in a number of studies that I've been involved with. And most recently was the New Zealand Psychiatric Epidemiology study. That was a while ago. We're just rolling out a new one. You've been involved with it as well. And you're also leading your own epidemiology study. I won't bore everyone with the details around how that study was sort of constructed and deployed, but what it did show was that there were significantly higher rates of mental illness amongst the Māori population based on the survey, and it was a large survey. It was completed in 2006. But those stats are likely to remain about the same, but and I'll get to my point eventually, but that contemporary study revealed that the lifetime prevalence of mental illness amongst the Māori population was north of 50%. And what lifetime prevalence means that across a person's lifetime, and if you're Māori, more than half are likely to suffer from a mental health problem that's significant enough to require some formal treatment or care. And it's understandable. Lifetime prevalence is always higher. Because across your life you've got more opportunity to,
Yep.
But the really concerning thing that came through in that study was that the 1 month, was it 1 month or 3 month? Well, it doesn't really matter. But the 1 month prevalence rate for Māori was, I think, close to 20%. So what that essentially means is that 1 in 5 Māori right now have a mental health problem, usually anxiety or depression or a mix of both. And it might also include sort of some alcohol and drug related concerns. So 1 in 5 are suffering from a problem now. Right now. That's very You get 5 Māori in the room?
One of us.
One of the biggest challenges with that, even though that result's not very positive, is that the vast majority aren't or won't seek treatment and care for those problems.
Yep.
So really, what would they say, suffering in silence.
Yep.
So the rates are, contemporary rates for our people are very high, especially when you compare to non-Māori. Now, the important thing to remember in that regard, why it pays to listen to the whole story, was that we know that the reasons why the rates are so high amongst the Māori population aren't related to biological, physiological or cultural reasons.
Yep.
There isn't. We're not genetically predisposed to mental ill health. Due to a whole range of socioeconomic and environmental, historical, colonial reasons, the rates for our people are elevated. And when you look at, and you would know this, when you look at the types of things which are catalysts for mental ill health, when you're unemployed or underemployed, when your engagement with education's being poor, when you're underhoused, when you're low incomes, all these types of factors, they kind of create a fertile environment for mental ill health. And unfortunately, due to a whole range of environmental conditions, a lot of our people will find themselves in those situations. But not the great thing, but because we know that, it's not too difficult to discern what the solutions are. And I've always been of the view that the part of the, I won't call it a panacea, but part of the solution in terms of Māori mental health and well-being isn't simply attached to providing more services for people to access.
Yep.
But Māori development goes hand in hand with Māori mental health.
Yep.
So if our socioeconomic circumstance improves, our educational outcomes improve, level of housing improves, our mental health will improve as a consequence. So very much so, mental health and well-being of our people, all people, very much attached to our environment and our situation and circumstance. It does surprise, and I've mentioned this a lot of times to students or when I've been asked to give a presentation, that while a lot of people are familiar with the rates of mental ill health amongst the Māori population in a contemporary sense, you know, there's an interesting fact that the first study on Māori mental health and Wellbeing was undertaken in the 1930s or 40s, I think, by a husband and wife team of anthropologists. And at that time, in the 1940s, they were looking at Māori mental health because they were trying to find out why the rates of illness for the Māori population were so low. So completely flipped on its head. Why don't they seem to suffer from mental health problems? And so they studied the Māori population and Māori communities, and there was a monograph that they wrote called Some Modern Māori. It's by Ernest and Pearl Beaglehold.
Okay.
And I'll try and get the quote right, but they speculated that the mental health disease figures for the Māori population were so low because of cultural factors, because of the whānau, because of the iwi, and that during times of increased stress or anxiety, that the whānau would come around the individual and support them. So in the 1940s, they identified the fact that these cultural practices were supportive of Māori mental health and well-being. Towards the end of that monograph, that paper, and I'll try and get it as accurate as I can, Luke, they said that they would hazard a guess, we would hazard a guess that as Māori become more and more westernised and become more and more accustomed to non-Māori ways of thinking and doing, that the mental health disease figures for the Māori population would more and more approximate that of the general population. So what they were saying was that culture matters. However, if these people lose their culture and lose their cultural practices, it would have a detrimental impact on their mental health and well-being.
Yep.
Lots of factors which contribute to mental ill health, but certainly it illustrates that a loss of culture contributes to unwellness, and on the flip side, an enhanced identity, greater knowledge and association with your culture and cultural practices can be a way in which we can boost people's mental health, well-being and resilience.
Yes. Yep. And it's so, fast forward 85 years to where we are today, if that was done in the 1940s, that our rates of mental health, almost every negative stat are some of the worst amongst, New Zealand. So, it's just come to a point now where, and I think we've known it for a long time, that we do need to get back to some of those roots of, looking after our own hau water, and coming up with those things, getting back to some of those practices, and especially what you said about having our whānau around. We had people that came around when we're going through hard times, when we're mourning, you think of those things with the tangi and, all of that, where we get to come around and be with each other and support one another in those times of great, mamai, is some of those things. With even in society in general, we don't really get to have those times because of busy life, because of jobs and money and housing and all of those types of things, what you've just explained too. So it just puts a lot more pressure on the whānau, that we actually try to depend on ourselves when we're coming to discover more and more that it's not really helpful for anybody.
No. And I think in a contemporary sense too, I think whānau are fundamentally important to mental health and well-being, or health in general. Probably in a contemporary sense, as Māori, we'd and when you contrast that with non-Māori, we wouldn't necessarily. I mean, there's whānau and there's whānau. There are whānau people that you're related to. But I would also think that for a lot of rangatahi in a modern world, whānau might be someone that they may not necessarily be related to, but someone that's always there for them, that provides support no matter what. I do, picking up on your point, just having the ability to sit and talk to someone. You don't even need to talk to them, really. You've just got someone that you can engage with on a personal level. I do worry, and I'm also involved in the study called Growing Up in New Zealand. It's a longitudinal study. And I do worry, and I'm not the first person to worry about this, but particularly with our young rangatahi and the amount of time that's spent on devices. And how there is a direct correlation between device time and a whole lot of negative outcomes and statistics.
Yes.
And I do worry that a lot of people's lives are, a lot of their social interaction is digital rather than organic. I don't think it'll ever be a replacement.
I don't think, you can't. But it also, like, hearing some korerō about, we, by engaging only online, we reduce interpersonal skills. We don't get the ability to learn how to overcome, in whānaus there's always issues, and as a whānau you have to overcome issues together. And sometimes with having those online experiences, you don't have to overcome those things within relationships or friendships. You can just leave, you can just close, block, all of those types of things. So we're not actually developing those skills or resilience. Yeah.
And I do, as I mentioned previously, might be a dinosaur. I'm not on Facebook. Actually, a couple of my friends aren't either. And I've, a couple of people have sent me things, and you can't always access it.
Yep.
I don't think, a lot of the engagement on here isn't really positive.
Yeah.
People would saying or doing things that they certainly wouldn't say to them. And, and it's, I kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm getting old, but just worry about the impact that that's having on the psychological well-being of the population in general.
Yeah.
One of the about rangatahi health, one of the neat things that they have implemented at Tipene was when the boys first arrived at the school, the cohort of 40 that started this year, they went through probably call it a detox.
Detox, yeah.
It was a getting up early in the morning and training detox. So they physically, it was a jolt, and then I guess nutritionally, they cut out the carbs, fats, and sugars.
Yep.
The boys were detoxing from that. I think that the biggest was the fact they managed their devices. So they have to hand in their devices, and I think most of them initially struggled with that.
Absolutely.
But profoundly, it meant that they had to talk to each other. And I remember going to a sports camp earlier this year, and they had 8 or 9 teams in this room. And the loudest group, they were well behaved. The loudest group were the Tipene boys. Our boys so annoying. But they were sitting there and they were playing games, they were playing cards, they were laughing, they were talking, they were running around. And you looked at the other 7 teams and it was like this.
Yeah, yep.
I think, gee, that can't be good for your mental health. So I do, but general thought there is, and I don't think we know yet what the impact of this sort of digital lifestyle is going to be in terms of mental health. You'd know more than me.
Well, I was looking at a few things, like the Youth19 study, I think was the one done in maybe around 2011 or 2012, and then they clocked in again, I think maybe 2019 or just before COVID. And some of them the statistics for different things, mental health related, attempts like suicide or self-harm, all of those types of things went up almost by, some of those things went up by nearly 20% over that period. You know, so it's like, wonder what was implemented throughout those 10 years, why things have gotten so much worse than what they were 10 years ago, you know, or even 8 years ago at that point. So, and you wonder, with other things coming out as well, was that a direct cause or correlation with, you know, our access to social media?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are just some interesting findings as we're doing this, you know, new research as well. It's like, wow, that's actually pretty massive. So
It's a concern, eh?
yeah, and I don't know if you saw the other day, but I saw a video with Paddy Gower, and he was having there was an interview, and they were putting into like a chat bot. I think it was Grok or something on Twitter, and it was a very interesting video. Like, and it's like this chat bot, and you're talking back and forth with them. They're giving some like. It was just a weird, like, we have to show it to you because it's just a weird, it was such an odd thing to see.
Yeah.
It's just like little figure avatar sort of talking in this, like, I don't know, the tone was quite like provocative or whatever. It was just a really weird thing to see. And they were giving some feedback on, you know, what do you think about youth mental health? What do you think about social media and all of that kind of stuff? And, you know, I think as well what they were getting to was like, is there a limit to what you'll be able to say, you know? And, you know, back to them. And so I just wondered, like, have you come across anything talking about that type of thing as well, like with maybe people talking with AI to help overcome different mental health challenges?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an area that we've been exploring probably superficially at the moment about that in terms of exploring research opportunities about the utilisation of AI as a form of mental health support. I simply don't know. For me, I would personally struggle to engage with something that's non-organic.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, some rangatahi, even adults, may prefer it, but yeah,
it's hard, to, like, how do you replace a real person, you know, like, the AIs might be trained to have the right words and the right thing, but it's really hard
on the right tone and
the right tone, and they're saying the right things. They've got all the professional, you know, outcomes and bits and pieces integrated into them, but I don't know, it's really hard to replace like a relationship, you know?
Yeah, and you kind of, I mean, I think one thing that that would be unable to do is to provide real empathy.
Yeah.
I don't think any sort of agent, as they call them, AI agent, could have empathy. It's just running the numbers, eh?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That sometimes, like, when you put things in, oh, that sounds really awesome what you're doing.
And the tone's great too, eh? You know.
Yeah. Gives you what you want to hear, eh? But sometimes, I guess, in that professional sort of space, eh? Sometimes, as a clinician, you know, previously, sometimes it's not always what we want to hear, but sometimes the pathway that we do need to go down. And I wonder if, like, you know, has the ability to actually make those decisions if they're trying to keep people on their platform, you know. So it's just an interesting korerō. I think very relevant too for the times that we're living in.
Yeah, we simply don't. I think unfortunately the ramifications of high or unhealthy levels of engagement on social media or online, I think we're only at the start of what's potentially is going to be a large challenge in the future.
Yeah.
But still, I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like Pandora's box. It's out. You can't
You
put it
don't
back
know.
in. And especially for boys. I mean, I've got a real passion for tāne ora, boys' health and well-being, and I think the number of boys that spend almost their entire free time gaming, it can't be good for you.
No.
You know, and what I don't easily get frustrated, but in public, I'm frustrated all the time in private. But you know, I just can't understand why, when we look at the educational statistics, primary, secondary, even at tertiary, I mean, they're poor for Māori. But if you stratify those numbers by gender, the outcomes for our boys are just horrendous.
Yeah.
Why there isn't more attention placed on that, I don't know. And I do worry about our boy. Even the the suicide rates are just, they're horrible.
Yeah.
Not to say that these issues don't impact our girls, but when the rates are so elevated for our boys, but there's no particular strategy or investment in their education or health and well-being, it's a worry.
Really concerning, eh? Yeah. Or that they don't fit into those priority groups. You know, it's almost, where they should be. Actually, there should be some priority on it if our stats are showing such.
It's the frustration.
Yeah.
The stats just showing that this group here is most in need.
Yeah.
It's great the work that you're doing in that space too. I know with our
good fun.
helpful too. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And so, just I guess as we sort of start to wrap up, I could talk with you all day because these are very interesting topics. I think for myself, I love to learn and have your wisdom and stuff here and expertise. So thank you so much. But just I guess one little thing I like to ask as well is just like what tools, in talking about resilience, have ever been maybe helpful for you that might have helped you get through? Is there a saying that you say to yourself? Is there a whakatauki? Is there a certain tool that you use or to sort of help you overcome different challenges in your life?
Gee, that's the most challenging question I've ever been asked. I know what I would say, and this was great about the Tāne Ora conference. We held, what was it, about 6 months ago? That. One of the cool things about that, for me, and it reflects my own life as well, you see all these speakers get up and you think, wow, there's doctor this and that, and professor this and that, and All Blacks this and that. And you think, man, they must have the perfect life, But to hear them get up and talk about the fact that they have real, legitimate challenges that they have to work through, and that was comforting. Not comforting that it was interesting from my perspective to hear that if you are struggling with issues or concerns, it's not uncommon. It's not you. It's part of the human experience.
Yep.
And that getting over those issues and building resilience can likewise be a challenge. But that point around, it's you're not alone.
Yeah.
In terms of having to deal with and work through those challenges.
Yeah.
One thing I try to do, and this is just a personal thing, I don't know if it's any help, but I try not to ruminate too much on what's going wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try not to ruminate too much on going wrong. That'll lead you down
really, definitely.
Yeah. That path isn't very good, and to focus on what's going well, what you have got, the people around you, what you can do. Definitely alcohol and drugs it's never a solution. Might seem like an immediate one. And I haven't thought about this before, Luke, but I remember when I was young, when I completely black hair, some little issue that happened to me at work. It was minor. I went to go and see Mason. And I was this and that. He's typing on his computer. He says, it is so frustrating. He paused and he looked at me and he goes, well, to Kani, he goes, the sun will still come up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what he meant was you get things in perspective. You got a lot going for you. Yeah, this might be uncomfortable, but don't dwell too much on that issue. Now, at that time, this is another point. At that time, was the most important thing to me in the world. It caused me so much stress and angst. I can't remember what it was now. It can't have been that important. But I was ruminating on it. Yeah. That would be, if anyone's to remember anything from this, and it's difficult to ruminate too much on those issues and focus on, what's the awesomeness that's going on in your life as well, whatever that might be.
Yes, absolutely. As how little or even how great it might be, it's important to look at those things in your life.
And I'm there's another illustration. I'm sure some people might look at me enviously. I was doing this and that. But, I go and watch the Poroporo rugby team play, and half of them, I wish I was half as good as... you always envy,
that's so true.
There's so many of your teammates, I think, man, I wish I was half as good as them. Yeah, anyone at the club will tell you that I wasn't, but
the old comparison thing. You just start beating yourself up about not having this or doing that, or
But I think all those, everyone I know's got some awesome qualities, things I wish I could.
Oh, absolutely. Just quickly going back to that comment about Mason Jury, that he said to you at that time. How did you react when you heard that? Was that a good thing to hear? Did that put you into perspective, or did you go back, I don't look at that?
A lot of what he said, was so profound. It wasn't so much it was how he said it, and the little smile. The sun will still come up tomorrow. It just made me think, what do you mean by that? It was really just a nod to,
it's all right.
It's all right.
Not too harshly,
you got a lot to be thankful for.
That's awesome.
So focus on what you've got thankful for, rather than that annoying thing, which is focusing all that unpleasant energy.
Yeah.
But that's not from a professional perspective or based on research. That's just kind of what gets me through. But like others, it's
just as good.
Look, and not to dwell on things too much, but often people say, you always come across so calm. I say, there's a whole lot of turmoil behind it.
Yeah. Yes.
There's always turmoil.
Yeah.
And just having to manage that.
Just life.
Just life.
Yep.
And trying to manage that. But
again, ngā mihi nui ki a koe te rangatira, the rangatira. Thank you for your time, for coming in and sharing your wisdom, and also the mentoring that not only that you put into my life and to helping us out with the projects and things that we're doing. But I'm sure I'm not alone when I say, grateful for your input into my life. So thank you. Thank you for that, and your tautoko for our mahi and the picture program, the all good stuff as well. And it's, really, really appreciated. And thank you for sharing, honestly, and from your expertise, and really, really appreciated it. And as well, one of the most humble guys that I've ever met is just unreal. So when you're talking about some of those qualities from masonry, you embodied them as well. So ngā mihi nui e hoa. Thank you.
And thank you again for the opportunity. I feel like I'm with the Māori Joe Rogan now. That's awesome. Yeah, I'll put it on my CV.
Podcast with the Māori.
Yeah, Māori Joe Rogan.
Oh, what a crack up. Choice.
Oh,
Yeah.